See, like when I like read this issue, I just get like lots of Ani DeFranco coming my way
See, I
because
don't know
of
who
just,
that is, so we're even.
oh my girl, okay. I know we haven't even started yet, but between you just saying that to me and like the fact that Kate Bush now is like the biggest thing ever because of Stranger Things, I feel so effing old. I am going to just melt into my chair of oldness. Like okay.
I broke Lisa before we even started.
I'm broken. Everybody at home, listen, Ani DeFranco. Anyway. Welcome back, everybody, to Simply Amazing. I am Lisa, of course, aka the OG Nocturne, and I have with me my much younger, very spry, very fit, very gorgeous co-host. Go ahead, girl, tell them about yourself.
What do you mean spry and fit? I haven't played soccer in how many years now? No, I am
But you
not
played,
fit.
though.
I did.
So that's the
Well,
difference between you and me.
also, years after playing, I realized I was not straight. So, can you blame a girl?
There you go. Yeah.
Anyways, I am Lauren, your friendly neighborhood bye. And I'm in my feelings. So Lisa is 100% in charge of this episode because I just before we started recording, I literally had just finished this issue that we're talking about today. And now I'm having issues. So we have a lot to talk about, guys.
Yeah, Lauren's having issues. I have a whole subscription. So yeah, we got lots to talk about. For those of you guys tuned, so this is probably not going to be as fun of an episode or as like happy and like light as an episode as we usually do, because this episode is going to deal with some pretty crazy things. So content warning just from the get-go. Infant loss, abortion, these are things that we are going to be talking about in this issue. So it is Exiles number 16. Personally, my favorite issue of any comic written ever. I might be biased because it is a very Nocturne-heavy issue, but it's an issue that has a lot of emotion, and it is an absolute masterwork of by Judd Winnick. I'm just going to say it. It's an absolute masterwork by Judd Winnick. Like, he is able to pull out these emotions and create this, story of these two characters that, for those of you who read Exiles, up until about issue 10, the idea of Thunderbird and Nocturne being together is like, whoa. It like takes everybody by surprise. But then you read issue 16, and if you go back and reread 1 through 10, it was there the whole time. It just, everyone was focused. It was more focused on Mimic and Blink. So nobody, could see what was happening. But
well, and as somebody so I have not read those other issues. I need to read all of Exiles. Like that is one of my top priorities on my reading list. But
yeah, it should be. It should be on everybody's.
As somebody who just read this issue alone, I mean, I can't see not shipping them, if that makes sense. Like, I read the issue and it's so well done, and I'm a sucker for couples and ships where there's, they have this certain dynamic of respecting each other, but they playfully tease each other, like, they playfully roast each other or get on each other, but they really are a very sweet couple on deep down. There's a lot of yearning. I'm gay, so yearning gets me every time. There's a lot of yearning in this issue. And it's so well done. It's so well written. And then the last page, which we'll get to, but the last page in particular has both, the yearning I'm talking about, like a romantic yearning, but there's also a different level of yearning that really just, it hits your soul. And that's why even this issue it's definitely sadder, and there's a lot of, heavy stuff in it. It's really important issue. And I can see exactly why Lisa was screaming at me to read it and, read all of Exiles, because there's so much important and good stuff here.
Oh yeah. I I mean, one of the big reasons why I said we need to do this issue is, of course, I mean, we don't talk about politics on this podcast. We are a happy, fun, whatever. But, there are things that happen in the world. And of course, recently with the issues with Roe v. Wade being possibly overturned by the Supreme Court, of course, it's still going through everything. But that whole thing made me say, we really need to go into this issue and look at this. One of the first one of the first that I ever read that really dealt with these kinds of issues, and in such a gentle way that yeah. But let's get into it. Let's get into the issue and let's start going. So I want to provide a little bit of backstory for anybody who, for example, Lauren or anyone who hasn't read Exiles up until this point. Basically, where we begin this issue is right after the battle with Galactus. So the Exiles have been thrust into this world that was run by the Skrulls, and all superpowered beings were forced to fight in a like it was like a why am I not gladiator, like gladiators. They were meant to fight like gladiators. And then Galactus shows up to destroy everything. The Skrulls are like, nope, and they get the hell out. And it's up to all the superpowered beings who've been fighting this whole time to defeat Galactus. And in the process of that, you find out that Nocturne is pregnant and that Thunderbird's the father. And all the Exiles are like, when the fuck did this happen, right? Because they're all just too busy focusing on the freaking Ross and Rachel of the team, aka Blink and Mimic. And yeah, basically to finish the backstory, Thunderbird sacrifices himself, knowing that what he's about to do is going to probably kill him. He sacrifices himself for her and their unborn child, is what is implied in his sacrifice, is that he's doing it for them. And so we start the issue with her, like they're about to blink away to their next destination. And in the issue that, they do this, she's like, well, I'm just going to stay behind because I'm not going anywhere. And basically Blink is like, we don't have an option. Like you can't just decide to stay. I mean, John is in a coma. He's staying because he's no use to the Exiles anymore. And then of course he's replaced by Sasquatch, Heather Hudson Sasquatch, not, the chick one. And she's crying and she's just does not want to let go of him. But of course she has no choice. She has to blink away with the Exiles. That is their life. And that's where we begin the issue. And it, it starts real heavy. It starts real heavy.
Yeah, it's funny because when I was telling Lisa before we record, like I had read the issue and I was like, well, see, the beginning of the issue, I was just pretty confused because I didn't know all that context. I was just trying to keep up and I was like, let me see where this goes. And then once it really gets more into specifically John and Nocturne, TJ's interactions and basically now that you say that, I understand that the whole purpose of this issue is to set up, like the importance of what happened before that, and and to continue it, because we'll get there. But basically, not only do we as the readers get the lead up to John's sacrifice, but then we also get the last page of the issue is the first result of that, basically.
Yes. And up until this issue, we knew that TJ lost the baby up until this issue. Because I think issue 11 or 12, like Mariko says something to her. Again, I haven't read these issues in a while. I'm just going off of what I remember, but I've read Exiles 1,000 times over, so I'm pretty good at remembering this stuff. So Mariko says something to her about like, hey, we're a family. We're going to help you with the baby. And she just basically shuts her down and is like, baby's gone. Like, baby's gone. I lost it. It's gone. And Mariko tries to like, be like, what happened? Like, why didn't you say anything? Why couldn't, like, you should have said something. We would have come to the hospital with you. We would have helped you. And she was like, and TJ just shuts her down immediately. And it's like, that is the last we hear about the baby up until this issue. And we find out, I think, a little bit more context as to what exactly happened to the baby. And we're going to get into that towards the end, because there's a lot of argument. I think we talked about this a bit in the Nocturne episode we did, but there is a lot of argument about what actually happened. I asked Judd Winnick myself, and he told me what happened. So we'll get into that when we
I
get to it.
mean,
But
yeah. I mean, when we get to that, yeah, I don't think it's up for debate what happened.
yeah,
And
I agree.
well,
I agree.
it's interesting that you say that and the issues before this, technically the readers know she lost the baby because so I read this issue and didn't know that. And so being the reader of this issue and not having that background, I didn't know that until the ending. So I wonder for you, Lisa, since you read all the issues and multiple times all that, did the last page hit as hard for you even though technically you knew she lost the baby? Did that still punch you in the gut? Because for me, I felt like, part of the, it wasn't the only impact of that last page, but part of that last page was not knowing that she lost the baby and then realizing, with that last page, all that and going, oh my fucking God.
So, for me, as someone reading it at the time and everything else, the last page doesn't give us a gut punch about losing the baby so much as it gives a gut punch about giving context to the loss of the baby. Because let's just get right into it, right? Let's just get into it. We're already talking about it. She aborted the child, like she had an abortion. She didn't lose her baby. She
I
had an
feel like we
abortion.
should I feel like we need to give some background to this because this isn't just so John and a lot of this issue, John and TJ, they spend this time talking to each other and bonding, and you see moments where like they'll bond over like other version of themselves, or like I think TJ was with his brother James or something. That was interesting to
Yes.
me.
Yes. So in basically they bond over their relationship. Early on, they bond over their relationship with their shared relationship with James Proudstar because each one, so in TJ's world, John is dead. He does, and James is basically Thunderbird in her world, and then in John's world, James is dead. So they have this like moment together where they really start talking and get along because they both knew James. And Thunderbird is just he's very interested in learning about this alternate reality version of his brother because of course, I mean, it's his brother that he lost and he wants to feel some kind of connection. So we'll start from the beginning. We're going to skip over the whole thing with Morph. It's cute and it's funny. It just shows that there's this beginning part where Morph is like, hey, we're going to like have some fun, come on, let's do something, and she's like turning him down. And it's clear that she's struggling a lot with what she's going through, and he's tries to be like, listen, I miss him too, we all miss him. It's just we want to be there for you. He's trying to give her support, but she's just shutting him down. And up until this point, she was a very fun loving character. She was a lot of like, so this is very out of character for her to be so like shut down from everybody else. um but we move right into kind of one of their first interactions, which was during the Battle of the Phoenix, which was about issues like 2 and 3, I think, or one, 3 and 4, somewhere around there, or very early on. They meet up and they have like a cute little conversation about um, flowers. Thunderbird likens himself to Ferdinand the Bull, which when this came out was more of a esoteric story, but like Disney's made a movie, or DreamWorks, one of them made a movie about it recently. But Ferdinand the Bull, the whole idea is he's this big, beefy, burly bull who, like it looks like he's ready to destroy things, but really he just wants to smell the flowers. He doesn't want to do the bullfights. He wants to enjoy nature. And that's a huge metaphor for who John is, because John is this beastly character who has been um created by Apocalypse, which, by the way, I just want to point this out. TJ ends up getting pregnant by a fucking cyborg. I mean, is that a Maximoff thing? Like, I don't understand. Like, is this like a thing in the family? Like, Wanda's getting fucked by cyborgs and having babies. TJ's getting fucked by cyborgs and having babies. Like, I mean, this has to be some kind
Look,
of like
sometimes
genetic thing.
we're more like our parents than we want to be. That's all I can say on that. I
That's
don't know.
tea. That is tea. But yeah, so he just, they have this kind of first interaction, and she's actually charmed by him, and he doesn't really even understand that he's charmed her. It's he has spent so much of his life up until this point as this like tool of death for Apocalypse that he doesn't even he's having hard times with just basic human interaction. He doesn't understand like how things work. And this is the kind of thing that I think is a really interesting and we'll get into it a little bit later in the issue, but there's this really interesting like dichotomy shift in their relationship where TJ, of course, she looks like Nightcrawler. She's a girl Nightcrawler, essentially. Like that's what her look is. She's not a girl Nightcrawler like by personality. I want to put that out there. Like she's not just Kurt the girl, Kurt Et. She is her own fucking character and deserves respect. Thank you. But that's her look is basically just girl Nightcrawler. And there's this weird thing about their relationship where she's the more human of the two of them. And he points that out several times where it's like she is what humanity is, and he is just this monster.
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
yeah, I really like that. That's where you start to first see it, like when they first have the interaction and they're talking about James and stuff, and you can kind of tell, or at least I could reading it, that like, and he doesn't say it, but as he's asked about James and how she was with him and such, I could tell he was kind of trying to feel around, like, could she ever like someone like me in his head? You can kind of get that interaction. And eventually, she does at one point kiss him, and he's kind of taken aback by it and doesn't get it. And she's like, I like you. Like, what don't you understand, basically? But then eventually it goes into a situation where they're in like some situation or whatever. And it looks like they had been, she had been trying to like, push a relationship with him. She wanted to have an actual relationship with him. She liked him. She cared about him. And he basically goes, no, like we can't do this. It's not conducive to our lives. There's no stability. Everything's unpredictable. Something can happen to you. Something can happen to me. And then eventually, even beyond that, he goes into what Lisa's been talking about, which is, well, how can someone as beautiful as you love me? And and she's like, what the fuck? Like that. Come on, buddy. Like, I like you. Like, how could you?
Yeah, it's so I want to encourage everyone just to read the issue rather than like us go page by page through it, because it's
Yes.
such a beautiful issue. And we get so much context about their how they went through the relationship. Basically, it's almost like a we're being treated right now to the B story of Exiles 1 through 10, essentially. So, Exiles 1 through 10 told one story, and this was all happening in the background. And it's, we go through almost every single kind of world that they visited, and what, like these interactions that TJ and John had. And, like we said, they bond over their relationship with James. TJ dated James in her reality. And of course, like I said, John was it was his brother, but they were dead. And like Lauren said, they go through this whole thing, and TJ is very like laissez-faire. She's like, let the good times roll. Like, let's just do it. Let's have a good time. We're here for a good time, not a long time, right? So let's enjoy the time we
Yeah,
have.
I mean, yeah, I wouldn't say though, like, it's not like she's just like, let me just mess around with him and do I want to move on. Like she does truly care about him, and you see that because eventually, even after he's like, how can you love me? And this isn't, this couldn't work with the way our lives are and stuff. They do get together, and you see that, yes, TJ becomes pregnant with his child, and they have
Mhm.
this really sweet moment where, even though it's not the prime time to be pregnant, looks like some battle situation or something, you know, they're both still, happy and excited about it, especially John. And, he even jokes, I want a boy, I hope it's a boy. And she's like, of course she would. And it's a
Mhm.
really sweet moment. And basically all this stuff, in that moment, especially, before that, before she even said that, they're talking about this battle moment and what's going on and what are they going to do. And John says, you have to keep fighting, basically. And that line is so fucking important, because of, what it leads into, because after all that, it goes into how, like Lisa said, John sacrifices himself, um,
Yeah.
all that. And it's, I can't stop thinking about that last page, Lisa. We need to talk about it. I can't
We're
stop.
gonna get there. We're gonna get there in a second. I have a couple more things I want to say before we get to the last page. I promise. I just want to point out, like, there's a moment. where he tells her that they can't do this anymore, and he calls her Talia, and she says straight up, "Don't call me that." And like, so what that says to me is she allowed him into a part of herself that she doesn't open up for many people. Like, she's TJ. That's her friends and family. She's TJ. She doesn't let most people call her Talia, except, okay, if you read New Excalibur, it's all wrong. Don't listen to it. New Excalibur sucks. Anyway, but it's so this is a thing about her. Like, she's TJ, but the people closest to her, it seems like she lets them call her Talia. And then the moment he kind of tries to break it off, she's like, well, no, now you can't have that part of me anymore. Like, no, like I gave this part of me to you, and now I'm taking it back. So sorry about you. And then they have, so we're going to get into the last page very, very, very shortly, but I just want to make a very big point about specifically John's character throughout this entire issue. Because John's character, his whole thing is he does not feel like a human anymore. He doesn't feel like a man. He is a monster. And that's this whole scene we have where they're in the White House, and he's saying to her, he's just like, first he's trying to talk about, like, our lives are so unstable, we can't do this, and then he's just like, this, it's a lie, that's not true, that's not why I can't be with you. And he essentially just goes into this whole, like, I'm a fucking monster. I don't even know what parts of me are human, what parts of me aren't. I'm just a machine. Like, you're this beautiful, free being who's everything that God intended and everything that God created. And I am this monster that was, like, destroyed by apocalypse. And, of course, that leads to them getting back together. But this is what makes the baby so fucking important, especially for John's character, is that he thought, like, this child is his, like, tether to humanity and tether to who he was as a person. Because now it's like, imagine you've had everything taken from you, all of your humanity stripped from you, but it's like there's this one little thing. You can still create a baby, you can still create a child with somebody, and that for him is just like this. It creates his reason for being and his reason for every single decision he makes from this point forward, up until him going into a coma. So he is just, he's so happy. He's so like, let's be real about this scene, right? When she tells him that she's pregnant, he is thrilled. She, she's not as thrilled. She's not sure.
She's definitely more cautious. I didn't read it at all as she's like, she didn't want the child or anything like that, but she definitely was more like, I'm not sure about this. And John was definitely like, okay, but it's okay. Like, we got each other, we got this, even if it's, not the greatest time and all that, I want this. And I'll make sure I help. And he was genuine in all that. But yeah, you're definitely right. She was very uneasy about it. And I don't think if she had, well, I know now, if she hadn't had somebody like John that she loved and cared about so much, I think she would have not wanted to keep the baby, not because she's against having kids or something necessarily, but just because she was uncomfortable and she had a right to that choice.
John desperately wanted this child. It meant everything to him. But for her, it, when they're together, it's like they can do it. You can tell at the end of that scene where they're hugging, and, you can tell that she's like, she's in, but she's in because he's in.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we're going to do it. We are going to do it.
Yeah.
But
Oh, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Sorry.
No, you go ahead. Go.
Oh,
You
no.
tell
Well,
me,
I was
girl.
just gonna say, and I think, and some people may be like, "Oh, well, you should have done." I think it's not talked about enough in any relationship in reality, right? A lot of times people have kids not because both people are as enthusiastic as the other in having children. A lot of times there is, between two people or whatever, that, they have, one person is very much more excited and the other person is okay with it, but they're really only okay with it because of their partner. Like, and it's not because they're being forced or anything. It's just because they're like, you know what? If we're in this together, my partner really wants it. I genuinely have no issue with this. This is this sounds like a great idea then. But if their partner isn't involved, they themselves, as an independent person, they don't have this burning desire to have children, a lot of people. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's just, these are the gray areas in relationships that are often not talked about. And I really like that in this issue, we see elements of, these gray areas, seen, whether it's directly said or through subtext.
Oh yeah. 100%. I mean, you hit the nail right on the head there. She isn't necessarily against the idea. It's just that he is what kind of gives her that surety of like, okay, if we are
Mhm.
together, we can do it. But she just can't do it by herself. And
Yeah.
like we need a little bit of context into TJ's character here too, right? We've talked about her on the episodes before. I am going to be in my discussion right now. I'm going to be not so nice as I have been, but here's the thing: you can't love a character without admitting their faults and admitting where
Mhm.
they are weak, right? And
Right.
for a lot of the same reasons I was initially drawn to TJ as a character and I loved her are part of kind of what gives her weaknesses in this. And let's be real, TJ is not like she was raised a little spoiled. I'm gonna say it. Like she was. It's just like you can't tell me that this child of the freaking X-Men and the Avengers wasn't a little spoiled growing up. Do you know what I mean? And the other thing too is like you look at Kurt's character. If Kurt has a child who takes after him, he is going to fucking do everything he can to protect that fucking child because of what he went through in his life. Do you know what I mean? So like she grew up sheltered. She grew up a little spoiled. She's a first generation child of immigrant parents growing up in New York. Like that is a story that has been told 1,000 times over. She's a millennial to a T. She's a millennial. So nothing wrong with millennials, girls and boys. I'm millennial, so like we're all good, But she grew up in this much more sheltered environment. So I understand her decision based on that a lot more.
How
Because think
would
about it. It's just like she has no one. All she has are the Exiles, and at this time they've only been together a couple months. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just like everyone in her life that she has any kind of relationship with is now gone. I don't
well
you
and
know I don't blame her.
and
Go
I
ahead.
I was gonna say, I mean, all the stuff you said about her, growing up kind of spoiled and stuff. I mean, that makes sense logically. I just don't get how that would affect her decision here, or her desire, right? Because we haven't even gone to the decision yet. We're still just talking about that moment where she's not exactly thrilled, like John is, but she's okay with it at that moment because she has a partner that's really serious. She trusts him. She does care for him. She's willing to allow him to be a part of this decision, and that's also something that's important to note here, I think. Talia could have said, if she felt so against keeping the child originally, she could have said, so I get you're happy and excited, and I don't want to hurt you, John, but this is my decision, my body. I can't do this. She could have kept him out of that decision. And again, as you said, not to get too political, but this stuff matters to me.
Hmm.
She did not have to let him be a part of that decision, even if at the end of the day, it's her body. She gets to do what she wants. And the fact that she did allow him to be a part of the decision originally and such, um, that speaks a lot to her character. Even though, like you said, they've only been together a couple months, and even though everybody she cares about leaves or dies or something happens or she can't be there with them, she allowed this guy she had only been with for months. So, if anything, I think that speaks to her character. I think that speaks to how much she loves, just like her father. I think that shows that she loves as strongly as Kurt does. And not to say Wanda does it. I just don't know Wanda's character as well in that aspect. But I know Kurt is, we all know it. He's the biggest sap on the planet, when he's not with his dick, even when he is. So,
Oh yeah. Oh no. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it's funny because you talk about Wanda's character. Like I see a lot of Wanda's character in TJ, even though like people might not, but I definitely do.
mhm.
And I think it has more to do with like her impulsiveness and her like just that kind of attitude. But she also is a little bit quicker to anger than Kurt is, which I think is more of a
Yeah,
Wanda
that's
trait.
her mother. Hmm.
Yeah. um but like even in later issues, like where you see her interacting with her father, and it's like her and her father, funny enough, her and her father don't really get along. Like
Mhm.
I imagine in her world, it's like she is much closer to her mother, even though we've seen the 2 issues where we actually visit her world, and basically the whole of the 2 issues is her and Kurt fighting. So I imagine she is much closer to her mother than her father in her world, as we've seen. And that's another thing too, is let's be real, like as women or as anyone who is having a child, like, or having a baby, it's, if you're carrying that baby, like, if you have a good relationship with your mother, you want your mother there. You want your mother as a part of it because your mother's been through it and she's going to give you the advice and help
Yeah,
to
yeah,
get you through it.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, depending, and I think it's interesting, and, we should do a whole separate episode on this subject, but I just wanted, since you touched on it, it's interesting because she's so much like her father, but doesn't get along with him, and I think that's interesting because even though they're so alike, they grew up with separate perspectives. Like, even though they're both very similar, they both love very hard. They're this, they're great leaders. They're this, they're that. Kurt grew up with a more, in a lot of ways, traditional upbringing in term, or, and he has a lot of, for example, his religion, Catholicism, influences a lot of his decisions. Nocturne, that's not a thing. And
No.
she's like, why would I do that? And then Kurt's like, well, because this, and morals and spirituality. And she's like, why? Like, no. At least the
Hmm.
current version of Kurt's character, once they did the priest stuff. So I think that is important to note, that doesn't mean, and not that you said this, but just for our people to not be thinking, doesn't mean they're less alike in case they fight and stuff. It actually makes a lot of sense that they would fight even more because they are so alike, and because they both will fight for what they believe in so hard, and
Yeah.
they both have separate perspectives that influence what they believe. It makes complete sense to me.
Oh yeah. And I mean, a large part of their fighting too is that um he's trying to protect her constantly. Like that's a big part of their fighting, is that he's always trying to protect her, like and like and he's it's more like he picks on her during like missions and during training because he wants to protect her. He's like, girl, like he sees parts of himself in her, and we're going to get into this when we'll eventually get to those issues and we'll read them and go over them. But he sees parts of himself in her that were that young, roguish, like swashbuckler. But there's a little bit of devil may care in that. And it's one thing if it's like you doing it, but like watching your child be that way, I'm sure is
Right.
terrifying. Where it's like, devil may care, girl, you better care because
Right.
like you're not dying on my watch. You're not getting hurt on
Yeah.
my watch. You
Well, and I
know.
like that you bring up the protective stuff, because we see that in her relationship with John in this issue. I mean, he not only has his own insecurities he's dealing with, but he also wants to protect her, and that's what he led off with, right? In that initial, pushback he
Mhm.
gave her, because he was like, "Look, something could happen to one or both of us. You could die, I could die," and and she doesn't like that. She doesn't like that he's being overprotective, probably because her dad does that and other things. TJ, she
But
doesn't like that. She's like, I can handle myself, and I think that's a terrible irony in this issue by the time we get to the last page, because she, and so many are instances, that you give, like with Kurt, and then this issue, even John, she's basically essentially saying she can't handle herself. Let's do this. I'll take care of myself regardless of what happens. Um, and then because of what happens, she makes a decision because because of John's death, and because she doesn't
mhm.
feel that she can deal without him. She actually, the terrible irony is that she actually wanted, and on a big level at least needed, him to be there for this. And because he wasn't, she made a decision. And so the overprotectiveness was actually really valid in this case, and it kind of bit her in the ass, unfortunately, to not
Yes.
take that more head on, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think it's very clear, and we've touched on it already, that she is willing to have the child if John is involved. But
Right.
now we're getting into that last page. We're getting there. She's willing to have the child if John is involved. However, he's not. And now, and again, this decision she makes, we there are like I am still so upset that they have not actually like spoken about the baby. So John and TJ do reunite much later in New Excalibur, I think. And for some reason, his first question isn't, "Where's our baby?" And the reason that that's important is because the last time we saw John before their reunion, he's still in a coma. I think this is like Exiles 69 or something, somewhere around there. He's still in a coma and he is dreaming about his wife and child. So it's like the last time and they're not married at this point here, but like he's dreaming about like her being pregnant and then having the baby and then them being like this happy family. So it's just more important to John is the baby. I mean, this is like his, like I said, his tether to humanity, his tether to what the man he once was and his family and his, I mean, I don't want to get into like, the whole him being native and that whole thing. It's just he's very much like this baby is important enough for him to sacrifice his entire life, right?
Well,
This
and
this
I think,
baby.
well, and that's a good point. And I mean, if and whenever we read New Excalibur, we can talk about that. I think more than anything, yes, there's so much John that has shown his feelings. I know how strongly you feel about that. But I think especially at this last page, this is like you said, the story. This is a TJ story. It's a Nocturne, and the last page. If you guys remember, we were talking about earlier the moment where they're in the battle together, and they're gotta. He basically tells her, you gotta fight. We have to fight. You have to fight. Talia. And then they talk about how she's pregnant, and he says, "Yep, we got this. It'll be okay." Well, now here you have a page here. She's, it says today after John, meaning after his death. She's sitting in it looks like an apartment room or something. And she's got
I think
Rose in her
it's
hand. She's crying.
Yeah, I think it's a hotel. I think they're in a hotel.
Yeah. And,
Um,
yeah. And she looks at the roses. You see a lot of tears on her face. And then specifically, this is why I don't understand how you can debate this, because in this next panel, she has a hand on her stomach. She says, "I just couldn't fight without you." And then the next panel is her laying on the bed, holding the roses, saying, "I'm so sorry." I think it's
yes.
100% obvious. Like, the only thing they could have done is said, "I'm sorry, I got an abortion." Like, that's the only way they could have made it clearer. Like, it's 100% obvious that, she's incredibly fucked up. Like, she's so sad. And she chose not to keep the baby because she did not feel she could do it without him. And she was feeling horribly guilty about it.
Oh yeah. So, by the way, if you guys can hear it, all of a sudden there is a ridiculous storm going on outside my window. So I don't know if anybody can hear it, but
It's perfect timing
apologies.
for the sadness of this page. So,
I know,
like,
right? God is crying right now, and my dog is like at my feet right now, panting her
oh,
poor little head off because she doesn't like storms. But we'll get through it. We're almost there anyway. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I So here's the thing. The reason people have debated it is because it's not 100% clear, like
of
because
course,
it doesn't say it. But the thing is is
idiots.
is, is you can't just have this issue end with her legs spread and a doctor there. Like, I mean, you can't, like, you the reason this issue hits so hard is because it doesn't this issue is not about abortion. This issue is about the human reaction and the human part of abortion.
Right,
And
the stuff that is behind why it happens, and what it means to both parties, but especially this issue really focuses obviously on why Talia, the woman, the person pregnant, made the decision. And yeah, I think it's so important, especially here, because yeah, the emphasis is on the fact that, look, she didn't do this because it was fun or easy, or she just said fuck kids or whatever people think. She made this choice because unfortunately she did not feel like she could raise a child without John at her side. She wanted and needed her partner. And
yeah,
that's a very real, and however you disagree or disagree with that choice, it doesn't matter. It's a very real, raw human emotion. So many of those emotions that go into that choice. And if
it's
anything, I mean, I would be surprised if, men read that and got upset, because it's like, she did it because she didn't have her male partner. She wanted him there. If he had been there, she would have kept it.
oh
Like,
yeah. It,
you can't get mad at this because of that. Like, it's, it's anyways, I think it's incredibly powerful, and it reminded me of there's some people that are listening may have watched the show How I Met Your Mother. I don't know if you've seen it, Lisa. There
I
was
have not seen it, but I have met Ted. He
yeah,
was
see, there you go.
I've met him. He was actually he was a best man at my friend's wedding. So
I love this for you. Yeah, it's a good show. It definitely, not all of it holds up. There's definitely a lot of issues with it today if you watch it. But one of my favorite and most heartbreaking episodes was there's this character, Robin Scherbatsky, and she's very much, I'm trying to shorten her background, but basically she's a character. She's, very tough kind of, she's a tough woman. She was raised by her dad basically to be a boy. Like her dad tried to raise her to be his son because he wanted a son. So she, as she grew up, she had to, she felt the need to be tough and had to deal with all these issues. But anyways, so she never really was into any of the stereotypical femininity stuff in terms of like, she never thought about having her own children. She wasn't all about becoming a stay-at-home mom or anything or being a mom. And so she was never interested in children. She just wasn't. But then there's an episode where she finds out that she literally cannot ever have children, that she is infertile. It will never be able to happen medically in that way. She can't give birth. She cannot have children. Her eggs are screwed. And the ending of that episode is her sitting on a bench being sad about it. And people are like, well, why is she sad? She didn't want kids. She's sad because the choice was taken away from her.
mm-hmm.
Because now, what if one day she decided she wanted them? Now she can't, no matter what she chooses. And I think that's so much to the tone of this issue as well. It's about the choice. She had
Yeah.
the choice to raise her child with her partner. She wanted that choice. But then the choice to raise her child with the father of her child and her partner was taken. And that wasn't right. It was life. There's nobody to blame for that, unfortunately. Really, that's just,
Yeah.
life happened.
But
He died, but
yeah, I mean, it goes into like, again, we're not going to get political, right? But it goes into
I
that
think I've done
idea.
past that.
Yeah, it's true. It goes into that idea that there is no invalid reason for an abortion. You know what I mean? Because it's like, really, when it comes down to it, there wasn't anything wrong with her baby. It wasn't. She wasn't sick. She's not in a point in her life where she can do it. She's 20 years old. She has no stability. The father of the child is no longer in the picture, and she doesn't even have a home. Like, she has nothing. Like, and and the other thing too with this child is there's a lot of kind of uncertainty about this baby and being an exile, where it's like, okay, but if I have this baby, does this baby belong to the universe I'm in? And do I blink away and the baby stays? Or does it come with me? There's all of these questions that are unanswered that,
Well,
that she's dealing with. And John at least gave her this kind of anchor where it was like, okay, regardless of what is going to happen, we're in this together. And then when he's gone, it's like, well, now it's just me. And I'm the one who needs to deal with this.
yeah, and she didn't want to. And I think people are like, of course, some people might be like, well, she should have just done it. And whatever, that's your feeling about it. You're entitled to your feelings. But she didn't want to. And again, it's not even just that she didn't want to. She didn't feel she was capable of doing it
Mhm.
alone. And again, that's a valid human emotion. I mean, I know even just when just even when it's not that, a situation big as that, if I don't feel I'm capable of doing something, I'm either not going to do it, or like if it's a work thing, I might ask somebody else at work that knows what they're doing to do it. Like, it's just, if you don't feel you're capable of doing something, don't do it unless you find a way that you can. And she couldn't find that way, it seems like. And that's just how it happens. But either way, yeah, like the raw human emotion, the fact that even just you and I can talk so many layers into this.
Mhm.
It's so well done. It's so good. I hate that I didn't hear about this before you, because I think everybody should be talking about this.
It's again, it's a beautiful, beautiful issue. Um, I want to say, I think I've mentioned this before, but so this came out in 2002. That's the other thing is, this
That's
was at a time.
insane.
Yeah, this came out in 2002. Um, and uh, the other thing I want to mention is I met Judd Winnick at a Comic-Con in, I think, 2004, and I
Mhm.
asked him straight out. I was like, was it an abortion? And he told me yes, it was an abortion. Of
Yeah.
course, I mean, listen, I'm very much of a believer of if it's not on the page, it's not canon. So
But it
however
was
you
on
want to
the
interpret.
page. She's
No, I
holding her
totally.
stomach. Like,
You're not
I
wrong. You're not wrong.
again, the only way they could have made that clear is if she literally said, I just couldn't fight without you, John. I'm sorry I had an abortion. Like if she had said that out loud to herself and said the word abortion,
I
that's
mean, I
literally the only way it could be clear. Why else would she hold her stomach? Why would they have the panel do that? Why would she apologize to John for it? Because she knew John wanted the kid. I mean,
I agree. I
those
agree.
people.
It's it is it is very though, it's very clear, but I agree that if it's not, it's clear, but it's not like 100%. So I agree. If people want to have it up for interpretation, I get it. But I do want to point out one thing. When you go to marvel.com and you look up the episode of the issue there, the way that they describe the issue, this is the description: explore the history between Nocturne and Thunderbird and learn the true fate of their unborn child. Now, again, I said already in about issue 11 or 12, she already told Mariko she lost it. So the fact that they're selling this as like this is the true fate of the unborn child, if it was just lost, then there is no
Oh,
true fate to
well,
learn.
Well, and here's the other thing. So, because at that point, people can still debate if it was a miscarriage or not. So I can see that debate. And here's the thing. Okay, why on the page in this issue of Exiles would she say, I just couldn't fight without you? I'm sorry. Why would she apologize and say she couldn't fight? That implies she made a choice that involved her not being able to fight. A miscarriage is not a choice. A
Yes.
miscarriage happens because of unforeseen circumstances. Something goes wrong with the pregnancy, and it basically the baby is terminated by your body or whatever on its own. The person does not choose to end the pregnancy. It's very clear this was a choice, and it's very
Yes.
clear why she made the choice and such. So Lisa is a nice one here, so please listen to her if you're angry, because I don't see how it's misunderstood on panel. I don't see another interpretation. If you see it otherwise, you're wrong.
The only reason I'm nice about it is because like this is like 20 years of me having this discussion with people. So it's like I'm just like, okay, whatever, however you want to interpret it.
I'm new to the party. I will bring the new fire. I will bring the
I love
new
it.
shut
I
up,
love it.
you're wrong. You
We
will
need
be
it.
the nice diplomatic one. I'll be the one, shut up, you're wrong.
We need it. All right. So I'm gonna ask the tough question. I don't know if we've I feel
Oh
like we
no.
might have discussed this already before or not, but I can't remember. I'm gonna ask the tough question. Now, this is specifically about TJ. I'm asking. I'm not asking about just anyone in general. How do you think Kurt would feel if he found out that TJ had an abortion?
Um I think he would be distraught, I think is the word. I don't want to say upset, because I don't know if he get angry. Um I think he would definitely be distraught, would be the first, and I think he would ask what happened, because I don't think he would get mad at his daughter, like blatantly mad, because I don't think his first thought, no matter how distraught he would be, oh my God, my daughter just fucking ended a pregnancy and how dare. Kurt doesn't think like that.
Yeah.
Especially on matters like this, especially with his daughter. He may fight with his daughter and disagree, but I guarantee you at the end of the day, he knows his daughter has his morals at the end of the day, like the good morals, not the religion, but the morals. And so I think
Mhm.
he would be distraught and he would ask what happened, and he'd want to make sure she's okay, because I guarantee you, if I think number one, I think she would break and tell him. I don't think anybody else would,
Yeah.
because I mean, especially with topics like abortion. I mean, there are times where like stuff comes up in somebody's life, and mine might tell the person involved, "Hey, they're dealing with this. Just want to let you know. Please keep it on the DL. Like I'm telling you, just so you know." Abortion is not one of those things you do. You do not go to somebody after somebody tells you they had an abortion, even if it's their parents say, "Hey, by the way, your kid had an abortion. Just that's why they're upset, but don't worry about it." Like you can't do that. So I think she would be the one to tell him, and I think he would just want to know what happened first of all, and his concern would be his daughter. I do genuinely believe that, because at the end of the day, Kurt is somebody with good morals, and he cares about his child, and he's a father. He's even before being a Catholic,
Yeah.
that, because his Catholicism influences his parenting, right? But it isn't his parenting, and he is not. He's a father before he's a Catholic, I think, in my head. And we're even starting to see that in Legion of X, where his Catholicism and his religion and his priesthood are being challenged, and he's not fighting it. He's just like, huh, you might kind of have a point. So Yeah, I think he
Yeah.
would wanna make sure she's okay, and he would be like, "What happened?" And then, when she told him, he would be like, "I'm so sorry you had to make that decision. I'm so sorry you didn't have your partner. That's not right." And you shouldn't have had to make that choice yourself. Because more than anything, I think he would have wanted to be there for her. He would have, like you said, talking about the mother being there for, a daughter having a child, I think he would have been wanting to be there to, talk her through that decision, or even just listen and help if she wanted an
Hmm.
influence on that choice. Because, maybe he would, and he might feel this way even if I don't agree or not, but I think he might feel like, hey, if he had been there, this Kurt, if I had been there with my child, I could have, been there and given her the support she needed to raise that child. And maybe she would have wanted to keep it then because she would have had support. But because she literally had nobody, she didn't want to keep the child and didn't believe she could. And I can't fault her for that because that's fucking
Yeah.
hard.
Oh, of course. Absolutely. I agree with that assessment almost completely. I think he would also be very distraught. I think that his distraughtness, like you said, it would be more like, what did my daughter go through? Um,
Yeah.
and I think also, like, I think like he would be, I think it would be something that he would really struggle with. I think, because I don't think it's a decision he would ever make. I don't think
Well, because one, he would, unless something changes, he will never get pregnant. So yeah, you're right. He will
yes.
never make that choice. And then two, if he got someone else pregnant, Kurt would be there for them. Unless he died, he won't be going anywhere. He
Yeah,
would be like, I
exactly.
am here. I am here. So you're right. He never will have to make a decision. That's why, you know, again, at the end of the day, even if you're right, like he may process this and maybe he does get a little upset in his own head that like, oh, well, I hate that my daughter had to do that or felt the need to do it or did it. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter because I think eventually he would realize through talking with TJ and maybe even others, like, what if he talked to Logan about it? Like, I think even Logan would be able to say, look, bud, you're never going to get pregnant. Like because Logan's one of those characters that, he seems very conservative and in some ways is, but at the end of the day, he understands with women and other issues like that, with women's issues and other issues, you know, he can't have a say in that. He always respects that. Like I can
Hmm.
say that. And so I think he would tell Kurt the same thing. Hey, buddy, like, look, I get you're upset. You want your kid. I get that. I have kids, but like she made her choice. I
Yeah.
get you wanted a grandkid, but she made her choice and she was without a partner, but you can't fault her for that.
Well, yeah. So the other thing is, I don't know that TJ would go to. I don't know that TJ would be the one to tell Kurt.
No, well,
I disagree with a little bit.
I don't think she'd go to him. I think if they were arguing per se one day, right? They're fighting about something and it gets too heated too quickly, and he's pulling shit on her. And maybe he brings up John, for example. Like he just stoops a little low in the argument, like we do sometimes. And she finally says, fuck you. I got, that I was gonna have a child with John. Because Kurt probably doesn't know that. And she said, we were gonna have a child, Dad. And I chose not to have it because I lost him. Fucking back off. And she would just storm off. Like
Hmm.
it wouldn't be her going to him and being kind about it. It would be more one day there would be an explosion and all this would come to light. At
I
least
could
in
see
my
that.
head.
Well, I see in my head again, and this is all just conjecture because there's very little evidence in the comics of any of this. But in my head, I feel like she'd go to Wanda first. Like that's who she'd go to for comfort
I
about
don't think
it.
she'd go to anybody. Because again, we see it here, like, and you know her better than I do, obviously, but
Mhm.
just alone in this comic and from you've said about, she doesn't have anybody. She's not used to it.
Well, yeah,
People that
not.
don't have people, they don't go to people about issues. They don't just go, I'm sad because I had to make this decision. I'm going to go talk to my mother. And especially with stuff like abortion as big a topic. I mean, I can just speak for myself as a woman, like, and I have a great relationship with my mother. I love her to death. If I had an abortion, my first thought wouldn't be, let me just go talk to my mother. It would be to shelter myself. It would be to lock myself in my room, you
Yeah,
know? So.
it depends on a lot of different things. I mean, right now she's alone. She's very much not alone when she's in her own home world. And the other thing too is like she's still not in her home world. Right now she's in freaking Agrabah or something, like as a queen. Don't get me wrong, she's a queen,
Justice
but
for
still it's
TJ.
so stupid. I mean, justice for TJ, a freaking men, justice for John. Justice for John too. Um
Ugh, put them
but
together. Okay, it's
uh,
fine.
I just love everything about them. yeah, I recommend everybody please read Exiles. It is so freaking good. I can't say enough about how freaking good Exiles is. To this day, it still is like one of my absolute favorite comic runs of all time is Judd Winnick's time on Exiles. I actually have issue 16 hanging on my wall right now. Can't see it. It's over there.
Mhm.
Signed by both Judd Winnick and Jim Calafiore. Both of them are co-creators of TJ, and both of them, well, Judd wrote it and Jim
Mhm.
illustrated the issue. So yeah, it's I have to say, like, I read this issue very, 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 very early on in me collecting comics and reading comics. And I think that this issue has a lot to do with why I stuck with it, because it's like, oh shit, they're dealing with women's issues. Like they're dealing with like,
Well, and in 2002, I mean, holy shit, that's
yeah.
an issue like this in 2000. That's fucking phenomenal. And with how well done it was. Like, I didn't read this issue and go, "Oh, well, this had the right idea, but ugh, not executed well." Because that's usually what happens with stuff that about big issues
Mm-hmm.
like this. They're done in the past. It's, right idea, trying to do a good message, but oh, like that just did not work. This, I mean, this read like something that could have been published today in terms of an issue like this and such. It was very well done.
Yeah, I think that Judd Winnick has a lot of, well, so Judd Winnick, I mean, he became famous writing, well, he became famous being on The Real World and then writing about his friend who had AIDS and died of AIDS. So it's not like dealing with these kind of issues is like something that's new to him. This is what he does. He's very good at finding those issues that are very at the time maybe hot button or whatever else, and he deals with them with such a fine touch and such a beautiful touch that it creates a beautiful story without it being necessarily a commentary. And that's what this is. There's really no commentary. Like there's nothing. No one is telling TJ she did wrong. No one is saying that she did right. It's just about her. And I think that is the thing that's lost in a lot of abortion debate is it is such an immensely personal decision. And that's what I love about this issue is that it's all it is about her and how it affects her and her decision. It's not like there's no greater thing. There's no like the exiles don't come in and like say, oh my God, you had an abortion? Oh my gosh, TJ, why didn't you tell us? Oh, why didn't you do this? It's just it's about her and the decision she made. And that I think it speaks volumes about how important that issue is.
Yeah, and I like how well written and easily it was to uh achieve what this does. So like this issue does a great job of showing how with a decision like this, when the woman or whoever's pregnant, because transgender and such, whoever's pregnant that's making this decision, how it's a hard decision. It does a great job showing it without on the nose, because it's not like you said, this is the issue where they're in a doctor's office and the doctor's like, you are having a kid, but also this could kill you. Or by the way, your husband's dead. So what do you want to do with the baby now? And she's like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. This is it just But this issue, it takes the time to just show how much went to the decision and how, and again, not that a woman has to consider her partner's decision, but the fact that she wanted her partner and such. And I think that's so important, especially for people that do not get pregnant or can't, and especially men, right? To see this perspective of, hey, this person actually wanted the kid because of her male partner. And then
Hmm.
when she lost it, she made the decision. So guess what, men? You do affect decisions sometimes, even if it's
Yeah.
not your choice, even if it's not your body. Your actions will affect this. And what happens to you, even if it's not your action, right? But what happens to you will affect this. And that's not to put blame on the men, but it's just say, hey, look, you're actually considered sometimes in these decisions. Because we do care regardless, a
Yeah.
lot of us, even if it isn't your choice. So I think it adds that layer to the whole, when you get into the politics of abortion, blah, blah, blah. It's very, you're either on this big side on the right or the big side on the left. There's so much middle that isn't talked about. And this issue just does such a good job doing that naturally without it feeling like an entire issue on abortion. Like until you get to the end of this issue, it doesn't feel like that. Like when I read it, I didn't go, oh wow, they're talking about abortion. Here we go. Like it didn't feel a slap in the face to you. It was natural. And I think this issue has the potential to be accessible to people on one end or the other of this issue, and bringing people closer together to understanding the
Yeah.
nuances and, like as you said way earlier, the human emotion behind real
Yeah.
topics like this.
Oh yeah. And like we said, there's no judgment in this issue. There's no judgment. It's not like she did it and it was bad or she did it and it was good. It's just she did it and it was her decision.
Yeah.
And
It was
she's
really good.
now dealing with it. Yeah. I will say, if you are planning to continue reading Exiles, things are not going to get good for TJ for a little while. She is about to go through a
Justice
lot of
for
shit.
TJ.
She's about to go through a lot of shit. She's going to Mojo World pretty soon, and she's going to be
Oh,
tortured. And yeah, it's going to be bad for a little while for TJ. So
well,
she really,
she's been
yeah,
through it.
she goes the fucking ringer in the next couple issues. Let me tell you. But yeah, thank you for reading it with me, Lauren. I'm so happy to
No,
share my
thank you.
favorite.
Yeah, no, thank you for suggesting it because yeah, I think and I mean, I'm not even the biggest Exiles fan yet or anything, but yeah, I agree with you. I think everybody should read Exiles, which I will be reading everything else, and even just read this issue to start. Like if you think Lisa's all crazy talking about like how much she loves it, how good it is, just read this issue because they'll convince you to read the rest like I am. So,
Exactly.
yeah,
And it might,
this was a freaking great one to read.
yeah, and it might just make you a Nocturne fan. Who knows? That's what I'm here. The Nocturne agenda. Hashtag Nocturne agenda.
She's here to get all of us.
I am one by one. I will literally speak to every single person on this planet one by one if I have to. Uh, yeah, but yeah, and girl, I'm just loving how you're like, I wasn't gonna read Exiles, but now I might. And it's like, oh, just like Saga, huh? Okay.
Yeah, and then Saga ruined it for me.
The thing about Saga is that, yes, it's a love story in the beginning, but at its core, it's Hazel's story. You know what I mean? So it's like, in the beginning, we have that love story because Hazel doesn't have a lot to say because she's like a baby and a toddler. So she's telling the story through, like, Hazel, like, you have to think of it this way. Hazel has like no memories of that early part of her life, just like none of us do. None of us have memories of that. So she's telling the beginning of that story based on what she's been told by her mother. So yes, of course, it's very heavily rooted in the love of them and the love story. But granted, then Marco dies. By the time Marco passes away, she's old enough now to have memories and to start remembering things. And of course, losing your father at a young age like that, that's a traumatic experience that you're going to remember that, and you're going to remember the things that happen around it. And so now, like, the narrative is going much more into Hazel's story. Like in one of the more recent issues, Alana goes on this whole, like, journey or like outside journey to run some drugs or something, and we really don't hear much about her side of it because we're focused in on like what's going on with the band and like Hazel and all that stuff. So I think that Marco's death was like that moment of, okay, now we're moving on. Now it's Hazel's story 100%. Now it's all just told from her and her memories rather than like what her mother has filled in the gaps for. So, but yeah, this is like a little off topic, but don't get me wrong. When Marco gets stabbed, it is the biggest punch in the gut. And I waited 3 years to hope that he was not dead. And maybe it was just, he was okay. And then they started showing the solicits with Bombazine in the front. And I was like, do not tell me that man is her stepfather. I will lose my mind if Alana has already moved on. And she didn't, thank God, because I'm like, girl, you're literally, you've got the entire universe against your love story. So maybe like don't move on so quickly. But yeah, she didn't, thank God. And yeah, so it's just in general, it's read Exile 16, read Saga, the end. Lauren, tell them where they can find you, girl.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at friendlymBHDBI, and all my other links and stuff are there. I do a live show on Sundays. Lisa's been on there twice now, and she'll be there more. So
Yeah, I'll be
I
there.
try to bring some Simply Amazing there. So it's a good time every time.
Yeah, we have a good time. It is fun. We had fun last time that I was on there. Although I'm still angry about the game, but it's okay. It's all good.
I think it was a great game. I had a great
I know you
time.
do. I know you do. I think me and Trace have other opinions, but it's okay. No, it was a fun game. It just, the rules were crazy. It was fun. That was a lot of fun. So yeah, if you want to find more Simply Amazing, come find us on our website. We've got a website called simplyamazingpod.com. You can find all of our stuff. I just put up a nice little page. If you want to come on and talk about Nightcrawler or Nocturne or literally anything, because I will make it fit and I will make it make sense with Kurt. come on,
All I
like,
heard
let
is
us
make
know.
it fit. That's what she
May
said.
that's what she said. Um, so if you want to come on and talk about anything, please just go to our website, simplyamazingpod.com. There's a little be our guest link, and it's got an amazing little picture of Kurt and Logan. I'll just say that.
It's so good.
And yeah, fill that out and let us know. We would love to have people on talking about their favorite things about Nightcrawler. The big thing about us is that we're not just about other podcasters or any, we want to hear from everybody. We want everybody in the world to tell us about why they love Nightcrawler, because everybody in the world should love Nightcrawler. Let's be real about it, right?
Facts. Soundbite right there.
Exactly. That's a shirt. So yeah, find us there. If you like us, if you enjoy this, please hit subscribe and give us a little rating. Tell us that you love us because we love you. Let's be real about it. And yeah, you can find us on Twitter. You can find us on the Facebook. We're on the Instagram. We're on Twitch here and there. We'll do lives and we'll do some giveaways and fun stuff. We have to plan another live for Twitch. We haven't done one
We
since
do.
April, so we should do something about that soon.
Look, I just
Uh,
want to give the people what they want, but if it's crickets out there, they don't want the giveaway. So let us know if you guys want to do in our giveaway.
Oh my God, that's like an old school sales technique right there. I guess no one wants the giveaways, so like no giveaways
I
then.
mean, it's an old school sales technique because it's true. It works. Well, if you don't want
Mhm.
it, we just don't need to do it.
No, that's
But
it
no, we're gonna do it
exactly.
anyway because we like doing them. We like giving you guys free shit. It's fun.
We do. And I bought a whole bunch of shit that I have to give away now because I mean I don't need 1,000 shot glasses that say different X-Men's names bars. Um, so yeah, please come find us and tell us, what you think of us. We are very thick-skinned. We can take it. And yeah, if you are out there and you are trying to make a tough decision, just know that it's up to you, girl. It's whatever you want to do is up to you. But just remember, you're simply amazing.